In the past 2 years, in small towns all across the country, bodies of black men and women have been found under very mysterious circumstances. In most of these cases, authorities have either closed the case, declaring them suicides or accidents, usually against the wishes and better judgment of the families, or have left the cases unsolved. Unsolved black death is not unusual. 1/3 of all murders in the U.S. go unsolved. And in 2013, 86% of murders involving a white victim were solved, while only 45% of murders where the victim was black were solved. No one can explain if this exists because a code of silence, lack of resources, or the inherent bias that black people fight every day. The question I have is, were the cases where it was declared that the victim committed suicide, was it suicide, or was it something more dark, sinister, and a part of the dark history in this country? I'll be back. Welcome back, folks, and hello, new listeners. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your life and checking out this video. Please listen to the entire video, like, comment, and subscribe. We will very much appreciate it. Let's get on with this. I must say that it's way more easier looking at videos about mysteries and cold cases than it is to actually research and look up information. It's kind of heavy and dark. Very sad. Because I thoroughly enjoy mysteries and cold cases and the like, I'm going to start incorporating mysteries on this channel, particularly mysteries about black folks, and whatever content I feel is very interesting that I'm sure you guys would enjoy. So let's get on with it. Not every black person who dies under suspect circumstances become a hashtag. In fact, more often than not, the death goes unnoticed by the national media and social media alike, leaving friends and families of the victims with more questions than answers. While cases like JonBenet Ramsey become high profile, thousands of others are quietly swept under the rug every day, offering parents, loved ones, and communities no resolution. Roosevelt Champion III. In 2015, police twice questioned Roosevelt Champion about the recent death of a white woman in the rural town of Greensboro, Georgia. After interrogating him, police released Champion without filing charges, and his family said he seemed unbothered by the event and happy about his new job. Less than a week later, he was found hanging from a tree using a plastic zip tie. His death triggered speculation of foul play. After a thorough autopsy examination, there was no evidence of any inflicted trauma to Champion's body, the agency said. A sister of Champion's told NBC Atlanta affiliate that she wasn't satisfied with the GBI's conclusion. I'm angry because I don't have answers, Miranda Wright, one of Champion's sisters, told the station. He'd do a lot of things, but he wouldn't have harmed himself. I doubt it. As Wright spoke across the street where Champion died, another sister standing next to her wept, the WXIA reported. He's always happy, Terry Johnson said. He tries to help everybody. He never harms anybody. He didn't deserve to die like that. Nothing about that 18-year-old Ben Kaida's death makes sense to his family. His body was found half frozen, hanging by a rope from a tree branch 30 feet above the ground on January 9th, 2017. His feet were just 2.5 feet from the ground, but his body apparently was not seen when the same area was previously searched. The circumstances were so strange, even the Snohomish County, Washington coroner changed the manner of death for Kaida from hanging to undetermined. The Muslim teen's family reported Kaida missing 6 weeks before his body was discovered and said he had no history of depression or mental health issues. Yet, after reviewing the case, the FBI found that the aspiring doctor was not murdered and closed the case. Lake Stevens police recently closed their investigation into the 18-year-old's death. They say all evidence shows Kaida took his own life. On Friday, 195 pages of the case file were released under state public records laws. Testing continues for genetic material from multiple people who were at the scene. The tests include samples found on a rope and a flashlight. Police found no sign of a struggle or foul play, the records show. There were no injuries except those caused by the rope. No evidence turned up that Kaida had been bullied. The only discord the investigators found in the teen's life was that he had stopped going to school and he told co-workers there were problems at home. He had few friends and rarely left his house. It is dated January 11, 2 days after a group of teens found the body in the woods. The teens told officers they had gone there after school to smoke marijuana. One of them saw Kaida after leaving the trail and climbing over a log. Official searches, including a helicopter and a cadaver dog, had not found the body in earlier weeks. CAIR also suggested Kaida had been dead for 15 days before he was found, which would have meant he was alive for weeks after he went missing. The medical examiner determined that he had been dead for up to 6 weeks, Barnes noted. That was consistent with the death occurring around the time he disappeared. On the day Kaida was found, another of his neighbors approached police. She recalls seeing a flashlight in the woods the night the teen went missing. She said it didn't seem unusual. Young people were known to frequent those woods, sometimes with lights. The teens who found Kaida had acknowledged they touched the body, initially thinking it could be a prank. They checked for identification and found a flashlight in Kaida's pocket. When officers arrived, the teens were told to place the flashlight on the ground. The flashlight's location raised questions for Kaida's family. They didn't recognize the light or the rope that formed the noose. The detectives were... Wait a minute. Do they actually ask the family if they recognize the material that was found around their loved one's neck? Like, hey, sorry to disturb you. I know it's a hard time for you, but do you recognize this rope or this piece of clothing? Yeah, it's not strange that they would ask about clothing if it was, that was the ligature used. But a rope? That is crazy. Okay, let's continue. The detectives were told there are no known hate groups working or functioning in the area of Lake Stevens and Snohomish County as a whole. The only group the center has information on is anti-gay and based in South County. The case was treated as a homicide until determined otherwise. Barnes wrote up a follow-up report. All evidence points to Ben committing suicide. A teenager wearing shoes a size and a half too small and not his own with someone else's belt tied around his neck was found hanging from a swing set before his first start of the football season in August 2014. Baldenboro, North Carolina police identified the body as 17-year-old Lennon Lacey. Even though a white male had threatened that he was going to kill and hang Lennon, and despite the fact that the teen had been warned about his interracial relationship with a 31-year-old white woman, state, local, and federal investigators, against the wishes of his family, ruled Lennon's death a suicide. A coalition of church leaders, lawyers, and activists in North Carolina have called on federal authorities to aid in the investigation into the mysterious death of Lennon Lacy, a Black American teenager found hanging in August from a child's swing set in the middle of a largely white trailer park. Lacy's death on the 29th of August has spread a chill across the small town of Baldenboro. The image of a black male found hanging from a beam is gruesomely resonate across the South, given the history of lynchings. He was found hanging just a short walk away from his home hours before he was set to appear in a high school football game for which he had been training for months. Detectives appear to have latched on to the idea that he was depressed a day before he died. Lacy's uncle, with whom he was close, had been buried. Though the family disputes there were any signs of depression beyond normal sadness, 5 days after his death, the local investigating team announced that no evidence of foul play had been found, implying a probably suicide. Reverend William Barber, president of the North Carolina branch, told the press conference that if the basic facts were reversed and Lennon was white and found hanging in a predominantly black neighborhood where there had been such a rush to quickly say this was a suicide. He declined to give specific details, saying that the NAACP was determined not to muddy the investigation, but added that evidence had been found suggesting that racial tensions played a part. Lennon Lacy was in a relationship with a white woman who lived over the road from him at the time, or shortly before he died. He did have an interracial relationship and attended an interracial church, and people in that community raised their dislikes of that, Barbara said. The NAACP letter to Walker also refers to a possible race-based animus toward Lennon and his family by some of their neighbors. In March 2015, local police found the body of Otis Byrd hanging from a tree in Port Gibson, Mississippi. Byrd had previously served time in jail for murdering a member of a powerful political family. After Byrd served 26 years in jail with no record for harming himself, he was released, committed no other crimes, and found a job working on a riverboat. But he apparently decided to hang himself as a free man. Police and federal authorities ruled the death a suicide. Byrd's nephew, Lee Kendrick Byrd, told the AP that police who initially investigated the scene told them his uncle's hands had been tied, but he had freed them and then tried to escape the noose. Byrd had served 25 years in the Mississippi prison system for capital murder and the killing of a white woman, convenience store owner Lucille Trim, in 1980 during a robbery. He was paroled in 2006. In Mississippi, the penalty for capital murder is either execution or life without parole. It is unclear why Byrd was allowed a sentence with parole if he was actually guilty of the crime. Trim was the mother of retired U.S. Air Force Major General Martha Rainville. High school classmates Laura McDaniel and Anita Smith said he always had a smile on his face. I just can't see him committing suicide. And he was a quiet man. He didn't bother nobody. He had been out 9 years and all of a sudden this happens to him? Impossible. Ryan Singleton always dreamed of acting and modeling, so he left his hometown in Atlanta in 2014 and headed to California.
Yeah, Faith, even years later, it's still a case that has a lot of public interest. Now, when Ryan was found, his eyes, heart, lungs, liver, and kidneys were missing. He had rented a car to drive from LA to Vegas, and after just a few hours into his drive, his car ran out of gas. That's when California Highway Patrol picked him up and drove him to a gas station. At that gas station was where he was last seen alive. 74 days later, his body was found 2 miles away, and years later, his family still doesn't know how he died.
So there are a lot of questions and answers that I'm still seeking 6 years later for my son Ryan.
It's something a mother should never have to do, bury her son.
They have not concluded a manner or cause of death. They listed as undetermined.
Iris Flores says her son's autopsy report left her with so many questions.
2 tattoos were cut off. According to the autopsy, it tells you that the flesh, there was one here behind his ear, and there was one here on his left shoulder, and it tells you that flesh was missing.
Joggers found Singleton's decomposed body in the Mojave Desert 2.5 months later with all his organs missing. Officials have yet to issue a cause of death, and what happened to Singleton remains a mystery. The death of the 25-year-old model and aspiring actor Ryan Singleton in 2013 has been the subject of intermediate news coverage since it was initially reported, in part because of its connection to a grisly longtime urban legend. But questions continue to surround Singleton's passing. Singleton, a Georgia native, was found dead that September, 2 months after he was first reported missing in California. He was last seen shopping at a gas station near Baker, which sits close to the state's border with Nevada. His body was discovered on an unpaved road about 1.5 miles away, but it was missing several organs, including his liver, eyes, and heart, as well as some of his ribs. According to past reports, Singleton was allegedly dropped off at the gas station by a California Highway Patrol officer following an unsuccessful search for the rental car he was driving back from Las Vegas. The vehicle was found on 10th of July 2013, a day after his last sighting. However, officials with both the CHP and the Nevada Highway Patrol told us on the 1st of January 2017 that they have no record of Singleton's interacting with members of their department. An NHP spokesperson said that their officers would not drive anyone across state lines in a manner described by past reports. When told about this disparity, Morgan said, if there's no record that they took him back, that kind of leaves a hole in time there. I would think that would be something that would be need to be looked into even further by the investigators. In November 2018, fraternity brothers discovered the body of Gregory Johnson in the basement of a San Jose State University house. The 20-year-old kinesiology major was 6 feet 2 inches tall, but was found hanging from a water pipe 5 feet 10 inches from the floor in the basement of the house of Sigma Psi, the largest white Greek college fraternity in America. Despite inconsistencies in testimony and no ligature marks on his neck, Johnson's death was ruled a suicide. Gregory's mother, Denise Johnson, was not notified of his death until several hours had already passed. Students, grief counselors, and university administrations were notified of Gregory's death before Denise ever received a call. Denise was notified of her son's death by Clear Lake, California police officers that showed up to her house. Denise claimed she felt intimidated because one of the officers had his hand on his gun and kept asking if the family was going to drive down to San Jose that night. Fearing for their safety, Denise and Gregory Sr. did not leave Clear Lake, California until the next morning. Gregory's body had no marking on his neck to suggest strangulation, which is odd considering the police report stated that he had been hanging for nearly 2 hours before his body was discovered. When Denise Johnson arrived at the Sigma Psi fraternity house around 1:30 p.m. on November the 23rd, the basement smelled like pine saw because somebody had already disinfected the crime scene. The Grand Master of the fraternity was already at the house when the Johnson family arrived. The house was filled with fraternity boys who Denise Johnson believed were looking for a fight. Denise remembers seeing a police riot squad van parked at the house when they arrived. One of Gregory's fraternity brothers lied to the evidence collector and tampered with Gregory's belongings. Members of the fraternity told the evidence collector a cell phone at the site did not belong to Gregory, so it was left behind. Gregory's sister-in-law recognized the phone, and the frat members acknowledged that the phone belonged to Gregory before handing it over to the family. When Gregory's sister-in-law went through the phone later that night, she found that all of Gregory's pictures had been deleted, and somebody had attempted to call his voicemail at 8:30 p.m. on November the 22nd, several hours after he was allegedly found dead. The Santa Clara County's coroner's office refused to let the Johnson family view ID Gregory's body. They stated that the fraternity brother who found Gregory dead had already ID'd his body. The coroner's office told Miss Johnson that she needed to raise a few $1,000s ASAP to have Gregory's body sent to Clear Lake, California, or else they would cremate his body. When Gregory's body finally arrived at the funeral home nearly 2 weeks after his death, Denise Johnson discovered a 6-inch crack in the back of his head, from which brain matter was still oozing. This injury was not mentioned in the incomplete autopsy report that the Johnsons received. Gregory's neck was also broken. The Johnson family believes SJSU covered up Gregory's death because his fraternity included boys from wealthy and influential families. Gregory was close friends with a fraternity member whose father was in a leadership position at the company Monster Energy Drinks. According to Ms. Johnson, Gregory's friend deleted all pictures of him and Gregory after Gregory's death. They had recently gone on a vacation with a group of friends. All the pictures from this vacation were deleted. An independent autopsy can help prove that Gregory did not die by strangulation from suicide. Don't you guys see, I know you see it. It's just a figure of speech, but I'm sure you see the commonality of when one sole black person hangs primarily around majority of white people. I'm not saying it happens in all cases, but these cases that have come to the media where individual black person has been around majority of white people, they end up deceased. Let's continue. Have you heard of a white person who solely hung around black people and ended up deceased? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I don't really hear it as often as I hear the reverse. Let's go on. Justin Johnson's cause of death was ruled a sickle cell complication. His family thinks otherwise.
And you hear one person say something to the effect of, get this on video, and then Justin finally makes it down to an area where they stopped going, and one of them says, well, where the F did he run to? And one person says, he ran to effing Africa. Justin remains down here until, we believe, when he thought the coast was clear. He walks all the way down to that first home on the right, comes all the way up the road and back down again before he comes back inside. He doesn't want to engage with these individuals anymore. What we don't know from that video footage is whether one of them had some kind of a weapon in his hand. It's our belief that when Justin saw this person jump out and start to run towards him, there was something in his hand that Justin saw as a threat. And Justin ran away to try and get away from that threat and ended up down on that embankment that you have. Justin comes back inside and calls his dad and tells his dad that he had to run away from some boys who were chasing him. He didn't elaborate on what was going on. And Justin's dad said, look, I'm almost home from work. He makes it home maybe about 45 minutes after that call and finds Justin dead. He doesn't know Justin is dead at the time. He thought Justin just wasn't answering his phone when he called him multiple times. He called 911. CPR was attempted. He was taken to Hershey Hospital, where unfortunately they were not able to revive him. We have several questions about what was going on that night. We don't know, number one, why these boys were specifically targeting Justin, right? They started off trying to get him to come outside from Monday, and multiple attempts on Friday the 26th to get him to come outside. We don't know if this was part of some kind of a hazing ritual that the football team may have had, because remember, Justin wants to be on the football team, and we believe that the individuals who came to the home were part of the football team. Those are questions we don't know. The other thing that we started talking about recently is we also don't know if this had anything to do with this new craze apparently on TikTok called Senior Assassin. It's supposed to be a game that involves individuals trying to tag other individuals with water guns or pellet guns or paintball guns. This incident or this game became such an issue that there were multiple news articles that were published going back to last year, May. I believe the York Daily News, if I have the media name correct, published something saying that, listen, this is a very, very dangerous game. Police officers started warning the public about this Senior Assassin game, because if you're playing this game, what was happening was people were calling 911 thinking that there was a crime occurring, because they see people dressed in hoodies, they see people carrying weapons that they think are real guns, and we believe that's something that Justin saw when that person jumped out from that vehicle and ran towards him.
The verdict is in for the official cause of death of 16-year-old Justin Johnson. Though the medical examiner concluded he died of natural causes, rumors still reel over whether he died by the hands of a group of racist white boys. Lower Paxton Township, Pennsylvania police say the evening of April the 26th around 8:20 p.m. a white teen rang the doorbell at Justin's home. His father told police his son left the home to go play tag with his friends in the neighborhood. Video footage shows Justin leaving with the other boy. Over the next 15 minutes, Justin and another boy were seen running past the house and occasionally walking across the lawn into the street. In another clip, Justin is jetting from what appears to be 4 white teens and slides into a bank into a field-like arena. The teens were heard laughing, and one yells, "He's going to effing Africa."
Shut up, boy. Get on video! Yo, where the f*** did he go? He just went to f***ing Africa. Get him! Get him out! Yo, where the f*** did he run? You look right now.
In the following video, Justin comes to the porch using his phone and then finally goes back inside the home by 9:27 p.m. Justin's father told police he tried to contact his son but couldn't reach him. However, when he returned home 30 minutes later, he says he found his son unresponsive. He immediately calls 911 and begins CPR. Lower Paxton Bureau of Police and took over CPR until South Central EMS arrived and took over care of Justin. He was transported to Hersey Medical Center and was later pronounced deceased at about 11:53 p.m. During the initial investigation, there were no signs of forced entry into the home and no indication that anyone else had entered the home with Justin, according to the police. The Dauphin County Coroner's Office ruled Justin's official cause of death as complications from sickle cell disease with additional cardiomyopathy issues. However, the interest is still reeling over the leaked surveillance footage. The public has torn about the videos frame by frame, trying to identify the teens, and eventually landed on their conclusion about what happened. Justin's death was a racially motivated crime. This is horrible, disgusting, and sad. I'm sure the parents would try and downplay this. They need to be charged with hate crime, wrote one Facebook user. Officials in Dauphin County say Justin Johnston was involved in a tag game leading up to his death one day after a family attorney highlighted the role that the game Senior Assassin may have played in the case. Police said about 22 juveniles were at one point involved in the gang that occurred in and out of school. The game began on April the 22nd, was supposed to run until April the 26th at midnight, where players would either record a person being tagged or have 3 witnesses verify. Videos of kids playing the game and running in school were shown by police during their press conference. Police also confirmed that a water gun was brought to Johnston's home, supposedly as part of the game. Police say at one point Johnston texted classmates, "You are never going to catch me." The investigation into Johnston's death has drawn widespread attention in the community after racially insensitive language used by a classmate was captured on security footage while Johnston was running outside. The Pennsylvania State Police Heritage Affairs section is assisting Lower Paxton Township Police with their investigation. My conclusion is this. As I said, these deaths bring to mind things that happened back in the earlier days when white racists were bold with their hatred and fear and routinely lynched a black man or woman or child at will. Whatever they were aggravated with, whatever they wanted to falsely accuse a black man, woman, or child of doing, they just lynched them without any repercussions. So it still seemed like it's the same thing happening, as just in more modern times. What to say, nothing changes but the days. It's still being repeated, and those who want to keep denying what's in their face, those are the, you know why a lot of people want to deny it, including mainly white America, is because it's too brutal to admit. So that's why they have the luxury of not talking about it and pretending like it doesn't exist. The brutality, the racism, the murder, the injustices, they have that luxury of pretending that it doesn't exist because it's too brutal. They can't handle it. But on the flip side, it's in our face. And they're the main ones that say, let it go, let it go. But as I often say to people who write comments on some of these videos, how can we move forward if you don't let it go? And you're causing division and this, that, and the other. First of all, division was always here. Second of all, how do you stand there and open your mouth to say that we're not letting things go, but you don't take that same energy and take those same words to racists who don't let anything go? They're trying to mirror the actions of their deceitful, wicked, perverted ancestors. They're trying to treat us the same way. Only thing is, we're not in physical chains. But they tried to put the entire group of black Americans in financial chains, psychological chains, emotional chains. So, you let it go first. How about that? If you guys honestly let it go, there wouldn't be anything to talk about. Because you let it go. Because you're not repeating the cycles. You're not perpetuating the evils that your ancestors committed. But you guys are willingly perpetuating it. Some are ignorantly perpetuating it. But it's being perpetuated. So that's why we keep talking about it. So if you don't want us to talk about it, it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. Stop doing things, and therefore we will not talk about it. Okay, I'm about to shut up the shop. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this entire video. Thank you for commenting, liking, and subscribing and sharing this content, as it does a channel good. I appreciate your help. I appreciate your support. Be safe out there. God bless you.